The arena was electric, the air crackling with a tension so thick it felt like the walls themselves were holding their breath. Every seat was filled, every pair of eyes locked onto the center of the ring where history was about to be made. The night had been building to this moment, the anticipation swelling like a storm just before the first bolt of lightning split the sky. And now, as the final introductions were set to begin, the world was about to witness a collision unlike anything seen before. At one end of the ring stood Roman Reigns, the embodiment of dominance, a force that had steamrolled through challengers time and time again. He was the face of an empire, the head of the table, a man who had turned the squared circle into his personal kingdom. Every step he took carried the weight of his legacy, every glance a reminder of the destruction he had left in his wake. And yet, even with all his power, all his victories, there was something different about tonight. This was not just another match. This was not just another challenger. Across from him stood Sharapudtin, a name that had traveled through whispers and warnings, a name that carried a legend of its own. He wasn't just a fighter. He was something else entirely. His presence alone sent an unfamiliar chill through the crowd, a ripple of uncertainty even among those who had seen it all. Draped in an aura of mystery, his past was shrouded in contradictions. Some called him a warrior forged in the fires of ancient conflict. Others swore he was something beyond human. No one knew exactly where he came from, but they all knew one thing. He had come for Roman. The referee made his way to the center, his face betraying the weight of the moment. This wasn't just a fight. It was a battle of forces, of ideologies, of two men who refused to kneel. The energy inside the arena was no longer just excitement. It was something primal, something raw. And when the bell finally rang, the first strike was thrown with the force of a war drum, the sound echoing like the opening note of an epic that would be told for generations. What happened next would leave the world questioning everything they thought they knew. Roman barely moved as Sharaputtin lunged, but his instincts flared like a predator, sensing danger. The impact sent a shockwave through the ring, a collision so fierce that even the ropes trembled from the force. Roman had faced giants, legends, and warriors who prided themselves on their strength, but there was something unnatural about the way Sharaputtin moved, swift, controlled, and almost too precise, like he had studied every second of this moment before it happened. The crowd roared, but beneath the excitement, there was an undercurrent of unease. Some of them had followed Roman's journey for years, witnessing every opponent who dared to stand against him. Yet this time, the usual script didn't seem to apply. Roman's strikes, the same ones that had put down countless challengers, met an eerie resistance, as if Sharaputtin absorbed them rather than endured them. And when Sharaputtin retaliated, it wasn't just brute force, it was calculated, as though every motion was the next move in a game Roman hadn't realized he was playing. Paul Heyman stood outside the ring, gripping the barricade so tightly his knuckles had turned white. His usual smug confidence was gone, replaced with an expression that betrayed something close to fear. He had been by Roman's side long enough to know when the odds were shifting. He had seen opponents who believed they could take down the tribal chief, men who thought they were the ones to dethrone him. But this was different. There was no bravado in Sharaputtin's demeanor, no arrogance in his approach, just a quiet, unshakable certainty. The cameras caught every flicker of emotion, zooming in on Roman's face as realization set in. This wasn't a match he could dictate. This wasn't an opponent who would break under pressure. And as he dodged another strike, barely avoiding the force behind it, a new thought crept into his mind. Sharaputtin wasn't here to win. He was here for something else. Backstage, tension seeped through the walls. The locker room, usually a place filled with chatter and rivalry, had fallen into a strange silence as wrestlers and staff gathered around monitors, watching the fight unfold. Some exchanged glances, their expressions unreadable. Others whispered among themselves, questioning where Sharapudtin had truly come from. His records were scarce, his history a puzzle missing too many pieces. Even in an industry where reinventions and surprises were common, he was an anomaly, one that didn't fit into any established pattern. Meanwhile, in the production truck, the team controlling the live broadcast scrambled to keep up. The director barked orders, instructing the cameras to capture every second, but the unpredictability of the match made it nearly impossible. Sharaputtin's movements defied expectation, forcing the camera operators to adjust faster than they ever had before. Back in the ring, Roman took a step back, reassessing. He wasn't just the tribal chief in name. He had fought for his position, built his empire through sheer will. And if this newcomer thought he could walk in and disrupt everything, he was mistaken. Drawing on every ounce of his experience, Roman shifted his approach. He had played this game too long to let an unknown rewrite the rules. But just as he prepared to turn the tide, something changed. Sharaputtin's expression, which had been unreadable up to this point, flickered with the faintest hint of something unsettling. Not confidence, not aggression, but recognition. Like he had already seen how this would end. Roman lunged forward, determined to break through whatever mystique surrounded his opponent. But the moment his fists connected, a sensation unlike anything he had ever felt jolted through his arm. It wasn't pain. It wasn't exhaustion. It was something deeper, something that reached past his muscles and bones, something that whispered a truth he wasn't ready to hear. The impact sent Roman staggering back, his breath coming shorter, his vision blurring for just a second. And in that second, Sharaputtin stood unmoving, watching him not with triumph but with something else. Something Roman couldn't name. The crowd erupted, unaware of the shift that had just occurred. To them, it was a brutal match, an exchange of power. But for the two men in the ring, it was something far more dangerous. Something neither of them fully understood yet. Roman clenched his jaw, shaking off the strange sensation pulsing through his arm. He had been in wars before, fought through exhaustion, pain, and the weight of expectations. But this was different. Sharaputtin wasn't just another opponent. There was something unexplainable in the way he absorbed every strike, the way he moved with precision that felt too calculated, too practiced. And that look like he had already seen this moment unfold refused to leave Roman's mind. Paul Heyman's voice rang out from ringside, his usual bravado replaced with urgency. He called for Roman to take control, to shut this down before it spiraled into something they couldn't contain. But before Roman could react, Sharaputtin stepped forward, his stance unshaken, his eyes locked onto him with an intensity that burned through the noise of the arena. Then, without warning, he spoke. No microphone, no theatrics, just a single sentence. A name. One that Roman had never heard before, yet somehow felt disturbingly familiar. The moment the words left Sharaputtin's lips, Roman felt an unnatural pressure in his chest, as if the air itself had shifted around him. His vision blurred for a split second, flashes of something, images that didn't belong to him flickering at the edges of his mind. A city he didn't recognize, voices speaking a language he had never learned, a throne that wasn't his yet somehow. It felt like it had been. The referee hesitated, sensing that something had shifted beyond the match itself. This wasn't just competition anymore. This was something deeper, something ancient, in a way no one watching could understand. Roman shook his head, trying to push away the unease creeping into his mind. He wasn't here for mind games. He was here to fight. Summoning every ounce of his power, Roman exploded forward, driving Sharapudtin into the ropes with a force that shook the ring. The crowd roared as Roman unleashed a flurry of blows, each strike more punishing than the last. But then, just as quickly as he had taken control, something impossible happened. Sharaputtin stopped moving. Not dodging, not countering, just standing there, absorbing every impact as if Roman's strength had suddenly been stripped away. And then, slowly, he raised his hand. The lights in the arena flickered. Not a malfunction. Not a special effect. Something deeper, something wrong. The energy in the building shifted, the electricity in the air turning sharp, almost alive. Roman took a step back, his instincts screaming that something beyond his understanding was unfolding right in front of him. The commentators fell into silence, their usual calls and reactions lost in the weight of whatever this was. Even the most hardened fans in the front row leaned back, their cheers turning to murmurs of confusion. Something was happening. Something no one could explain. Backstage, the production crew scrambled to figure out what was going wrong with the lighting. Except there was no technical issue. Everything was functioning perfectly, yet the cameras were picking up something else, something that shouldn't be there. Roman felt the pressure again, heavier this time, as if something unseen was pulling at the very fabric of the moment. And then, for the first time since the match had begun, Sharapudtin smiled. Not a smirk. Not arrogance. Something else. Something that told Roman this fight wasn't about victory or titles. It was about something far bigger than either of them. And whatever it was, it had already begun. Roman's body tensed, every instinct telling him that something was wrong, deeply, irreversibly wrong. He had fought through everything the industry had thrown at him, but this wasn't just another battle. Sharaputtin wasn't standing there like an opponent, he was standing there like someone who had already won. And that smile, that knowing look, made Roman feel something he hadn't felt in years. Not fear. Not doubt. Something worse. A sense that he was standing in the middle of something far beyond his control. The flickering light steadied for a moment, just long enough for Roman to shake off the haze creeping into his mind. He had to move. He had to end this before it became something bigger than a fight. With a sudden burst of energy, he surged forward, driving his shoulder into Sharaputtin's midsection and lifting him off his feet in a crushing display of strength. The impact sent both men crashing to the mat, but before Roman could capitalize, Sharaputtin twisted his body with unnatural precision, landing on his feet like gravity had bent to his will. The crowd's cheers faltered, confusion spreading like wildfire through the arena. This wasn't normal. This wasn't something that belonged inside the squared circle. Roman pushed himself up, chest heaving, heart pounding. He wasn't about to let this slip through his fingers. He had built his empire on resilience, on dominance, and no matter what tricks Sharaputtin had, Roman wasn't about to let them define the outcome. But then, Sharaputtin spoke again, just a few words, barely audible over the noise. And the moment Roman heard them, everything changed. The arena felt smaller. The thousands of fans, the flashing cameras, the booming commentary, it all faded into the background as something deeper took hold. The words dug into his mind, pulling at something buried so far beneath the surface that he had never even known it was there. A memory that wasn't his. A battle fought long before this one. A war between forces that had shaped the world in ways no history book had ever recorded. Roman staggered, gripping the ropes as his breath came in uneven bursts. The match didn't matter anymore. The championship didn't matter. Somewhere in the depths of his mind, he understood Sharaputtin hadn't come to take his title. He had come to wake something up, Paul Heyman's voice barely reached through the haze, calling for Roman to finish it, to reclaim control. But before Roman could move, Sharapudtin took a slow step forward. Then another. And with every step, the weight pressing against Roman's chest grew heavier. Somewhere in the production truck, the feed flickered. For a split second, an image flashed on the screen, something ancient, something unrecognizable yet hauntingly familiar. A battlefield stretching beyond the horizon. Shadows moving across the sky, figures locked in combat that defied time itself. And at the center of it all, two warriors, one bearing the same piercing gaze as Sharapudtin. The other, wearing the face of Roman Reigns. The image vanished as quickly as it had appeared, leaving the production team scrambling, unsure if they had imagined it. But inside the arena, the feeling lingered. Something had shifted. Something irreversible. Roman's fists clenched, his body refusing to back down even as his mind wrestled with the truth unraveling before him. If this was real, if any of this was real, then he wasn't just fighting for a title. He was fighting against fate itself. Sharapudtin finally stopped, just inches away, his expression unreadable. For the first time, Roman saw something different in his eyes, not challenge, not intimidation, but recognition. And then, in a voice barely above a whisper, Sharapudtin said one last thing. A name. Roman's true name. Not the one the world knew. Not the one he had built his legacy on. The one that had been buried beneath centuries of forgotten history. The name of the warrior he had once been. The moment the word left Sharaputtin's lips, the lights cut out completely. Darkness swallowed the arena, and for a heartbeat there was nothing. No sound. No movement. Just silence so complete it felt like the world had stopped. And then, just as suddenly as it had gone black, the lights returned. The ring was empty. Roman stood alone, his breath ragged, his body still braced for a fight. But Sharapudtin was gone. No trace of him remained, not in the ring, not on the ramp, not anywhere in the arena. The referee looked around in confusion. The commentators stammered, searching for an explanation. The fans erupted into a frenzy of disbelief. But Roman didn't move. Because deep down, he knew. This wasn't over. It had never been about the match. It had never been about the title.